we're getting to that point, man. We're getting to that point to where the NFL season is really, really going to be tested. It's so hard, man. It's so hard because we are 4 full weeks into the season, and we are right now in a situation where we have like 4 or 5 games that are possibly canceled, possibly postponed, possibly moved around. We've got players, being sent home. We have players being quarantined. I mean, the question is really, what do you do? Do you bubble this thing? Do you put people in hotels and try and bubble it up? Do you pause? Do you pause the season for 2 weeks? What do you do? And it's so hard with the NFL because, like baseball, you could risk a couple teams missing a couple days. You could risk a couple players missing a couple games or weeks or whatever. The NBA, they did their bubble thing, but the NFL, I mean, everything is so critical. I mean, just like the New England Patriots, they were forced, and really no one's talking about this for some reason, but they're forced to play number one without their starting quarterback and arguably their best offensive player. They're forced to travel on the same day of the game against the best team in the NFL. I mean, when you only have 16 games in a season, one game like that is a really big deal. I mean, how many times do we see a division being decided by one game, home field advantage being decided by one game, or whatever else? So this stuff happening like this, I mean, I feel like the NFL is kind of dragging their feet, or if nothing else, they're kind of just they're almost just going through the motions and hoping it all goes away. But at the same time, it's like, dude, can you risk that? Can you risk just kind of every week, like, oh, LOL, Stephon Gilmore can't play next week. Oh, LOL, Josh Allen can't play. Oh, Patrick Mahomes can't play. And next thing you know, you go to a playoff race where you have these teams that are missing out on home field or missing out on the playoffs because of half of a game. And it's like, well, if we would have had our starting quarterback for the whole season, or if we would have had home field advantage, not home field advantage, if we would have had normal travel, then we've been fine. And then it's hard for the gamblers and the bettors because it's really difficult to look at the stats and say, well, yeah, the Patriots lost to the Chiefs, but do we actually upgrade them for that? Oh, wow, yeah, this team's defense looks really good, but they've played 3 games against backup quarterbacks. Like it's just a mess. It really is. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm not sure what the answer is, because I'll tell you what the answer is not, in my opinion. I don't think they should bubble the NFL. I do not think they should go back. I don't think they should do what the NBA did with going to a hotel, doing all that stuff, because I think what's so good about the NFL right now is that it feels like the NFL. It feels like football when you have these players in their stadiums, even though there's no fans, but players in their stadiums. You get to see the Packers at Lambeau, the Saints in the Dome. If it was in some random ass hotel, I don't think it would be the same. If it was me, knee-jerk reaction, I would probably postpone the season for 2 weeks. I'd probably say, you know what? We're stopping the season. We're halting the season. We're going to give everyone 2 weeks, and we're going to see where we are after that. Because this little trickle effect of 2 players here have it, 8 players here have it, 10 players here have it, postpone this game, that's not working. Or that's not going to work. We're only 4 weeks in. So let's just say this happens on average the same way 4 times throughout the year. That's a huge deal. That's a real impact, So I think you just say, look, in the face of collective integrity or competition integrity, let's just postpone the season for 2 weeks, let everybody see where we're at, and then in 2 weeks we'll retest the league and go from there. And hopefully it'll give players a chance to, quarantine or heal up if they have COVID or whatever. Soccer does this all the time. Soccer goes on what's called international breaks. So players that play in like the Premier League in England, they may also play for their country. So they take like a couple weeks off during the year for international break. So it's not unheard of to have 1 or 2 weeks off in the middle of the season. The NBA has an all-star break. MLB has an all-star break. So I don't think this would be that big of a deal. Now, that is saying if you did that, you would be pushing back the Super Bowl. You would be pushing back the playoffs, which I'm guessing is a big deal. I'm guessing, when the NFL schedules a Super Bowl in advance a full year or however long they do it, it's not that easy to take that venue and move it back a week or move it back 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever you got to do. But that is one of those things where I would rather deal with the headache of moving all the stuff versus the headache of having just some half-ass, like, kind of sort of season where Patrick Mahomes plays 5 games. You know, like, and I'm using him as an example because he's such an exciting player. But what happens if Russell Wilson comes down with COVID, you know? All of a sudden, you're looking at the Seahawks who are undefeated. He's in an MVP campaign. He may, you know, is it fair that his MVP campaign and their season is derailed because of COVID, or any of these guys? You know, I mean, even like Joe Burrow. Let's say Joe Burrow gets COVID. You know, that's such a big deal. So, in to protect the assets of the NFL, to protect the game, I think giving it like a 2-week kind of buffer zone here, maybe even more. Maybe like every 4 weeks. I mean, now we're really getting into the weeds here, but every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks or something, we stop, reassess, retest, give everyone 10 days, give everyone 2 weeks, however you want to do it. And yes, it prolongs the season. Yes, it does some things, but maybe we have a better chance of some kind of consistency versus just crossing our fingers and hoping this doesn't happen anymore. I mean, right now, as far as I know with the NFL, there is no contingency plan. So if we have a real breakout, like a real serious outbreak of 15 players on 3 teams have it, what are they going to do? Because for what it seems like, they have nothing planned. So luckily we've only seen a few players on a few teams get it. But what if a full-scale outbreak happens and like 6 teams have to get pushed back? What do they do? What do you do? So I'm trying to get away from those possibilities in my plan. But with that being said, it's a pretty wild time in the NFL. So